How are you? We're lopsided. If this was a boat, we'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's pretty lopsided. Well, maybe some other people come in and fill in. It became the popular side over here. And well, this is Hope Dealers. If it's your first time here, um, we deal with all forms of trauma, abuse, and recovery. And we do it in increments on different subjects. Last week we talked about the difference between being assertive or aggressive or passive aggressive or just being passive. And it's something really important that we have to know about ourselves. And so that's why we went over some of that stuff. So, but tonight we're going to start something. We're about to start something. And we're going to talk about, and this is a book term, cognitive distortions. You're like, okay, that's what I said too, right? But I'm aware of what they're talking about. I just don't walk around calling it that. I'm just like, patterns in our life, things that are cyclical, that continue to move a certain way, that cause us to have dysfunction moving ahead. And sometimes dysfunction means it's not functioning right. So we have to make a change, then we have to make a choice to make a change. And you have to know what your options are to make a change. And a lot of times we just don't have the options. And we won't see the options unless we see ourselves. So that's why, just to find out if you're an assertive person most of the time, or you're an aggressive person most of the time, or you bounce in between them, that's all self-awareness. That's where it's like, I did not know this about me. You ever get really angry or really sad about something or whatever, and somebody said, well, what's going on? And you're like, you don't really know. There's some times you actually really don't know, because your brain is it's feeling a surge of something. It might be subconscious, that something subconscious was triggered, a fear, something built in the past is now here. It could be something demonic, just messing with your head. I mean, there's all kinds of angles that it can come at. But to be self-aware, you start peeling that onion. You're like, I'm not going to avoid this. I got to get at it. And that's what we're trying to learn how to do. Live a life where we get at it and we don't fear pain. Most of addiction is built around the fear of pain. Let that sink in. We hated the trauma. Whether we caused it because we participated in something or something happened to us, we hated that. And we don't want it to happen again. And we believe that the pain could kill us. So here's what gets crazy. We believe the pain can kill us, so we go and use heroin. And we're like, so I don't have to feel the pain that could kill me. You ever think about how that doesn't make sense? So sometimes I think back to some of the stuff I did. I'm like, what? It's a childlike reasoning that doesn't make sense a lot of times. But you're like, I'm going to be a doctor right now. I'm going to self-medicate, and I'm going to take care of this so that I don't feel pain. And so we'll make a choice of using something that can kill us, or that's blowing our brain, or that's ruining our eyesight, or that's destroying our kidneys, or something like that. But we're not going to feel that other pain. That's the pain that will kill me. And there's a fear of crying and a fear of falling apart. A lot of people have a fear of falling apart because they don't like themselves when they fall apart. You don't like what you look like. You don't like that sensation of lack of when you lose it, you lose what? You lose control. You lose being on top of it. You lose feeling like, no, I know where I'm going. It's just like all of a sudden you're just lost. And you're spiraled down to something that just makes you feel like, oh my Lord, I cannot afford to do this again. I do not want to feel this kind of pain again, nor do I want to feel this again. It's just horrible, horrible. So then we say, well, we'll self-medicate with something that'll cause an escape, right? We can escape from that. You can do that with porn, gambling, reading too many books. I mean, it can be TV, getting caught in different shows, like as if you live there, Like I think one of the popular ones now is Yellowstone, and people are just up in arms, and when is it coming out? And, because you can get caught away and stuff like that, caught away in the storyline. And all of those things, it's not wrong to watch TV, but all of those things, if you allow yourself to do that, is a form of self-medication that says, I'm really trying not to look at this right here. So give me something else to look at, something else to do, something else to get at. And then when we do that for so many years, whether, we may say, well, I've never used, I don't have that problem. Well, you may have never used a drug, but you could use working too hard, right? Pushing yourself, just anything that it takes to distract the moment, trying to stay away from it. When we do that, we lose touch with who we are. And at the time we start self-medicating, whether it be when you're 7 years old, 14 years old, 16 years old, when it is, we stop emotionally growing. Right? Because the way that it works here by faith is God wants us to go through the pain and learn how to deal with all the components of it. And then, guess what? Something like that happens again, it doesn't hurt as much. Not because you're disassociating, because you're aware of what's happening. A lot of times the traumas that happen to us are more of a loss of innocence. We did not know that was going to happen. We didn't see it coming, that our parents would get divorced, or dad would beat mom, or mom would, do something stupid, and not take care of us or whatever. We didn't see those things coming, and it's a loss of innocence with no information how to process it. That's what makes the pain so painful. You've heard me talk about it here before. If you get yourself ready for a shot, right, and you do some self-talk, and you get yourself ready, you breathe right or whatever, the shot actually hurts way less than what you pictured it. I had one of my fosters years ago. She was so cute. We ended up adopting her also, and she would just get so adrenalized. She'd be like, okay, and she'd do this little, and then she'd hold her elbow like this because we're going to give her a shot in the arm, and she'd be like, all right, let's do this. Okay, okay, no, wait. I'm not ready. And the nurse would be standing there. Okay, just tell me when you're ready. And then sometimes she'd go in a circle. She'd be like, it'd be a dance. I'm just rolling because she was so cute. And then she'd be like, okay. And then it would be like, and it just went through the roof. Next kid comes in, and it's just like, thank you. How's that work? Well, she wasn't aware of herself and how she could walk through the pain, because there was nobody there when she was little to help her walk through that. She was the child with her other siblings that her mom said, I'm going to the store to get something. Keep an eye on the little guys. Well, she was a little guy, right? And she walked off and never came home. After a couple days, the girls were like, or the kids were like, we don't have a mom. And so they put their jackets and stuff on, and like they see preschoolers do, I guess they went down the street just hand in hand. And then there was a police station down there, and they walked all the way down there in the cold, and then it was right before Christmas. And then one of them, you got those big stands, right, where they greet you. That's how it looks to kids, or way up. And so one of them took a chair and pushed it up there and stood up there, and they said, can I help you? And she said, we don't have a mom. Right? And so after that, it was foster care, not trusting people. It was boom, 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 where they have to take care of themselves. Well, some people, you gain skills. All people gain skills when you have to take care of yourself, like stuff you never thought you could do at a young age. You just start doing it. Like you know how to cook breakfast, at a really young age. It's like, I'm not talking because somebody helped you to learn that and they gave you a skill. It's a survival thing. But then there's emotional things. Many times we don't get the memo. And when you don't get the memo, it's a problem. Because then when you become an adult, that memo was supposed to help work you through the pain of the loss or the hurt. It was supposed to help take you through that. And when that doesn't work, it's because there's no information there. And then it's like, I don't have the information. So now what are you going to do? Well, I just got to medicate this area. Shut it up. It keeps bothering me. It makes me cry. I can't figure it out. So I don't do crying. That's another one a lot of people will come to. I just don't do crying. So these are things that lead up to usage. And a lot of times it can look like, your junior year in high school, you got high for the first time or whatever it is, might be even younger than that, but you're like, oh, this is because we're all going to go have fun. And that's in our cognitive thinking. We put that math problem together that says, that's really why I'm going and doing this. But you'll notice it's the ones who are hurting the most that do that the most. I can look back at my class and think about the ones that partied the most were the most avoidant of their pain. They were running from secret things, right? There were other people who were just like, no, I don't feel like doing that. Oh, you're so boring. Don't you want to have fun? Come on, let's go have fun. And they didn't feel, they were satisfied in life. They didn't feel like they had to go, they felt complete. So there was no like, hey, this is what you do when you're a junior in high school or a freshman in college or whatever. This is what we do. No, this is what you need, you think, in order to close down those ports of pain. So part of recovery, whether you've ever used a substance or not, it doesn't matter. Part of recovery is trying to figure out, how do I walk through pain and suffer well? I had a whole sermon on that not that long ago. You know, it's kind of like we need to learn how to suffer well. If you're going to suffer either way, right? Because you can go and use and be like, no, heroin's how I deal with the pain. It makes me well, and I can tell my body to, shut up, my mind to shut up, and I'm all on a whole different thing. Well, now you've introduced a whole nother level of pain. Maybe not in the first couple months, but everything after that starts to go downhill. Your body's in pain. There's an aftermath of all kinds of things, ruining relationships, being arrested. Those kinds of things cause a whole nother pain. You lose your driver's license. You're in the ER. You can't find your wallet. Somebody ripped you off because you're in the wrong group or whatever it is. There, you tried to avoid pain, and now we entered a level of pain, with no skill to walk through that pain that we were avoidant of. So this is why we do what we do, so we can start to see ourselves. It's never good to come into a class to try to figure out about your abuser. I gotta figure out what was going on in that person's head. And then to justify or to add to the fact, like, see, when I came to that class, then I found out I was abused. See, I was right. That person was a jerk. Well, that's not really why we're here. We're here to find out about ourselves. Because the only one who can heal you is God, right? And then with that, the only way that healing can come is it's not going to come for another person and somehow they hand it to you. It's between you and him. So it's the healing of your own heart, isn't it? All right. So this is why we identify things. So we have learned that some of the cognitive distortions are all or nothing thinking. We talk about all or nothing thinking here all the time because the word sober means to be well balanced. And if you have all or nothing thinking, it looks like this. It isn't a balance. It's like an airplane flying like this. We had a long talk about that last year, about, you're supposed to be flying like this in your airplane. My husband would fly those little Cessnas, and you're in there like 2 people, 4 people. You feel everything. The bigger the plane, the less you feel. It's kind of like a cruise ship. The bigger the ship, the less people get seasick. And I remember flying with him, and it was just like, it was constant. And then he'd come around the corner. But you never want to be flying your plane like this, right? All the time like this. That you might have to turn and do one of those numbers, but you will come back around and level out. And so to be sober means we have to figure out how to keep things like, oh, it leaned a little this way. Okay, that's all right. We'll just pull her back. And that's how life should look, more like this. All or nothing thinking is out of immaturity, and it's out of addictive behavior. It's very codependent. It falls in all those categories of dysfunction because it's an all or nothing. You are either a superhero or you're a loser. And you don't allow yourself to acknowledge anything in between. So all or nothing thinking is a cognitive distortion. To have something distort, it's like you can't really see it for what it is. It's distorted. It's fuzzy. And so then it's hard to grab a hold of something that's fuzzy and is in that distortion. And because you're looking for something that's going to be all or nothing, when really you're after middle ground for yourself. So one of the first things we need to look at is, where am I operating right now? How am I operating in middle ground? Middle ground is what brings balance, right? It's the post that helps to balance the two ends, right? Like a teeter-totter or something like that. You know, you come up and now it's level. Otherwise it's whoop, or it's this. And to live a life like that is a yo-yo life, and that's really hard. That's hard and is exhausting. So what you're looking for is to see how often you're in middle ground. With your temper, how you feel about yourself. You know, if something triggers you, are you automatically like, I'm a loser? Or I'm going to kill you because I know I'm the one who's smart. And there's no middle ground. There's no like, let's work this through. And people who have a tendency toward all or nothing actually didn't develop the skills to work through things. That might seem like a cut, but if you've gone through trauma and you didn't get the memo, how are you going to work through stuff? It's like trying to milk a turnip. You can't get something from something and it doesn't have it, right? So that's not a condemnation. That's just a fact. Like, there were areas in my life, it's just like, I did not get the memo on that one. I don't even know how to feel. I don't know. And so in those areas, if somebody touched those buttons, those parts of me, I would go all or nothing. And so I'd go to try to find middle ground, but I didn't have the information to find the middle ground. So keep in mind that this can be a pattern that comes out of the abuse that you went through, the lack that you went through, all or nothing. So part of our job when we're trying to be self-aware is to be finding ourselves in the middle ground. God's in the middle ground. If you see God as an all or nothing, that's a scary God to serve. Like, I love you so much, and tomorrow I'm going to kill you. You know, it's like that. That if you read the Bible, one person can read it and they just see his love through it, even when he disciplines, even when he corrects, even when you just see it, because there's such a safety. The next person will read it and be like, he's scary. Like, that's a God. I don't know about that God, if that's one I want to serve, right? And it's all perception because of that all or nothing thinking. Overgeneralization, here's the next one. One single negative circumstance manifests into a life pattern. Like if you get a flat tire, the first thing comes out of your mouth, if you overgeneralize things, is like, this always happens to me. Another one is, every single time I turn around. That's overgeneralization. That's over the top, and that means your brain actually can't think of a thing right now. When you're upset, when you feel pain, it's overgeneralizing. You cannot think of one good thing that has ever happened, because this always happens to me. Every single time I turn around, you never let me. Right? We'll use those terms. And if you argue like that with a loved one or whatever, when you're triggered, your pain's triggered, and you're just like, you feel unheard, and you didn't get the memo how to stay in middle ground, you'll start overgeneralizing. Well, those are big statements. We call those big lever statements. You know, like, every single time I look at you, you always disdain me, or whatever it is. And so I just pulled a big lever. Well, what does that cause that other person? They're not going to then go, well, let's talk about this. Unless they have skill. Most people are like, what are you trying to say? Are you saying I wasn't here for you? Yeah, you're never here for me. Never. I don't even know if there's anything between us. I thought you loved me. And all of a sudden there's this huge, big levers get pulled of doubt, and it creates this like, we have to solve an all or nothing situation. And I've been in those situations where I made those big statements. Thank God my husband has skills. But he's made some in his life too. And I have some skills. And so to be able to be like, hold on a second here. I'm not actually believing what you're saying in this moment. That's how you feel. right? Let's get to some middle ground. Somebody has to give the reality check. But if you come to me and you're like, you were never here for me as a pastor. And I'm like, I was too. You can ask Ashley. And I pull her in and I pull this one in. You know what I mean? And it's like this big fight happens. And now you really hurt me. And get out of this place. And fine, I'm leaving. You know, it just goes so fast. It just falls apart so fast. Because overgeneralization is what it says. Over, and you're making, it's way over the top. But you're generalizing it like it is, there's no variation. Like if you really believe in your life, you don't have any good memories. That's false. You ever smile when you eat ice cream? Sometime in your life? That was a good memory. Right? No, it just fell off on the ground. You know, people who have more of a negative mind, they'll X out anything you try to bring up. That's good. And this is where we have to, in order to find middle ground, this is where therapy, a lot of people don't like this. They don't like to write things down so that you can see what you believe, or journal or something like that. But it can just be a simple note, like from 1 to 10, what is it that I feel, and where do I have middle ground on it? If we just do something like that, now you're doing self-analysis. And pain does not like you to do self-analysis, because when you go to do that, it could mean that overgeneralization doesn't work now. You actually have to look for some things that did happen that were good. Have you ever had a therapist or somebody tell you, write down 5 good things that happened today? Today. 5 good things. Well, okay. Oh, I'll get some breathing. That's kind of good. Don't you think it's good that you're breathing? That counts. Yeah, you woke up, and this is really good. And sometimes we start there. But after a while, you start to see, you actually start to see the roses. You know, it's just a saying, but it is where you're walking along and you realize, no, there's some good stuff. This world sucks, but there's some good stuff. There's some good happenings. There's some good people here. There's some things that I can feel good about, that I made or I worked on or whatever. Like, for instance, if you're good at working on vehicles, but you have that overgeneralization and you're tired because you worked all day as a carpenter or whatever it is, and you come home and your vehicle's, your wife's like, it won't start. The thing that usually brings you joy is to fix something, walk away going, no, you fix it. Now you're like, come on. Right? You go into a whole different thing. And it's like, every time I just got home from work, blah, 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 blah. And you're reiterating to yourself that the very thing you're good at and could feel good about, you're not allowing yourself to feel good about. Yeah. So there's something about going after it. Now, let's say you bought a used vehicle. We have somebody that works closely with us. They just they'll see something along the road or whatever, and they restore it. Or they'll see a vehicle, and they're like, oh, looks kind of junky. I bet you I could get it running. Then they turn around and sell it. And you're like, you're creating more work for yourself. Yeah, but they're making money. And they feel good about it. They feel good that they have the knowledge to be able to do that. You can feel good on that realm, but if something breaks down in the middle of your show that you wanted to watch or something, and now you got to go out and fix it, now it's the overgeneralizations come up every single time. You know, it's always me. This is how my life works, I guess this is me. And we'll give these speeches. Sometimes nobody's really there and you're talking to yourself. Ever do that? You're like giving yourself a whole speech how you're a loser. And there's voice tones almost like mocking yourself. Well, okay, then I guess I'm going to go fix the car, you know. And our voice changes because there's such a negativity in it. The brain can't find the positive. Like I talked about, I think it was last week or the week before, like spilt milk. Some people, it's a heart attack if somebody spills milk. And everyone freezes at the table because everyone knows that person is like, the milk has spilled. Other people like, well, that didn't go as planned, so we'll just clean it up and get another glass full. It's that simple. We don't need overgeneralizations. Okay, so how many of you recognize you have all or nothing thinking in some area? Okay? How about overgeneralizations? Is it a habit that we do? Yeah. Phew. I at least now have gotten to the point where I recognize if one's going to come out my mouth. And then I try to shut my pie hole, which is really hard for me to do. Because I have the gift of gab. And so you're like, shut her down. Tell the factory to shut it down, because I know I'm about to say something. Every time I turn around. No, shut it. Because at that point, it's more healthy for you to find middle ground by finding something positive. Well, I'm tired and I just got home. I really wanted to watch my show, but thank God we have a car. And even if it's not running, I think I know what's wrong with it. Let's get the tools and I'll see how fast I can get this thing fixed, and at least I don't have to pay a mechanic. Like, there's something you're acknowledging, like there's some good things in this. Like every time my husband fixes something, and he's like the jack of all trades. I mean, he's like, I ain't calling somebody to fix a dishwasher. He'll go online and research the whole thing and the model and order the part and do the thing. And then the feeling that's good is like, that guy would have charged me $200 just to do that. Not here. But when you're doing it, if you're all negative about it, half the time you're not able to concentrate on fixing it anyway. But when you're positive about it, like, we're going to save some money here. This is going to be good. And it comes out and it's like it works, you can walk away from that project and feel really good. It's a choice. So far we have all or nothing thinking and overgeneralization. Mental filter. A solitary negative detail becomes the focus of your attention. I say it this way. It's something that, all of a sudden there's a certain thought or whatever, and your cingulate gets stuck on it, and you just can't walk away from it. It takes up too much space, time, and energy in your brain. You just can't get over it. You try to do anything, and it's like you just can't get over it. That's many times when people will self-medicate. They'll go try to change to something. However much you feel tormented is how high of a problem solve you need. So it isn't like, well, I'm going to go smoke a cigarette. If you got something that you see as really intense, if that's how you see it and that's how it makes you feel, you're going to look for something really intense to change the subject. Okay, so like if you, I don't know, you stubbed your toe to get an answer for that, so that doesn't happen again or whatever, you might just move the thing out of the way that you stubbed your toe on, right? Because it's a simple thing. But many times we'll have something where it's like, I'm leaving you, and I'm taking the kids with me, or so. These are huge things. And what happens is the brain then at that point will only come up with huge things to solve it. Huge, hurtful things. Well, fine then. Then I'm going to go sleep with the neighbor man. Or I'm going to go, see, we're doing something so big. We're going to go way over here. We're going to pendulum swing way over here because that's how much that hurt me. So that's that level of pain. Just the same way if you have a mild headache, you take part of a Tylenol. You can take a whole bottle. But people are in pain all over. They're popping stuff continually. It's not good for you, but what I'm using as an example emotionally, where we try to meet that need with something that's way out of line, rather than trying to rein it in and make less is more. Like, that is really hurtful. I felt like I was going to die. I'm to the level I could puke right now. That's how much this hurt me, but I'm just going to breathe through it. I'm going to take it to God. I'm going to talk to some people. I'm going to slow everything down. See, that's one way to deal with pain. So if I give you a little cheaper dealer right now, you know what that is? Just find an area that's real tender and just twist. Ever do that to a sibling? You guys are all so nice. We used to just run up to each other, cheaper dealer, and you just crank on it, leave a little bruise and everything, or whatever. And because you're twisting while you're pinching, it hurts really bad, right? But there's things that even, I'm just saying, there's something that's a suddenly, and it's a sudden pain. If you don't know how to deal with that, some of those things are like our emotional things. A suddenly will just happen, and we can have a huge reaction. How many of you, if somebody just pinched you, you'd punch them automatic? Be an automatic punch. Yeah, that's how I was. Not so much anymore. I might be like, what are you doing? But back in the day, it'd be instant. My arm would go out before I knew what I was doing. I'm like, I don't know. I punched you in the face. I don't know. I was just kidding around. I don't know, but it came out, and that's what happened. There's a distorted level in our mental filter that causes us to use big things if we feel emotional pain that feels big. Then we're not just going to get high. We're going to get really high. We're not just going to break something. We're going to bust it up. You know what I mean? And so the dysfunction comes out in that way. So a mental filter is the thing that now becomes the focus, and you can't really see how to walk through things. So if you didn't get the memo how to walk through it, now our cingulate is stuck on like, I can't believe they did that to me. They did that to me. No, I'm serious. I called Sarah and I told her, this is what they did to me. Then I talked to my pastor, and I can't believe they did that to me. That's what the brain does, right? It'll go from person to person trying to get the relief, but it's stuck. It's literally a stuck vision that now you got the distorted overgeneralization and all or nothing thinking, and now your brain doesn't have permission to go on to a new thought. How many of you here have experienced that? And sometimes all night, you're just like, I cannot sleep. All I can think about is this. And people will talk to you about, hey, where are we going on vacation? Let's go on vacation together. And why don't we do this? And what about going and looking at Christmas lights? And you can hear them, but this thought is bigger than hearing them. So what it does is it keeps you out of the now. You can't get into the now. Like, I'm here now. It's more like, no, what they did a week ago is still just ripping my guts out. I can't even hear you right now. Yeah, you're asking me all this stuff. I don't even feel excited about any of that, so I'm not really listening. So it's really painful when that happens. So this is when things get distorted. If you have that going on, it's going to cause a cognitive. Cognitive is your frontal lobes coming up with plans of how you're going to walk through the pain. If that gets distorted, I got no plan. People without a plan have a plan to fail. So if we say, well, let's come up with a plan, like peer support, right? You have somebody here have a peer specialist that helps you or whatever. I do that. Ashley does that. We have other people who are about to start doing that. They come alongside of you to help you make a plan. And when we sit down with people and we go to make a plan, it's very clear sometimes that they're all or nothing thinking, and that makes it distorted. That there's an overgeneralization, like, well, I don't know how you're going to help me. This never works for me. I'm the one always last. I'm the one, overgeneralization. And then the mental filter is stuck on something when we're trying to go, let's lay out a plan. A plan looks like detail to detail to get to big picture. So let's talk about big picture. Here's big picture. How are we going to get there? These are the details to get us to big picture. They can't see it. In fact, sometimes you can't even see big picture. It's hard because the trauma has now taken up too much space, time, and energy in the brain. And it's stuck on that thing. And it's best that we walk through that thing before we ever try to make a plan. Sometimes the plan is like, well, this train is not going to go anywhere. So we'll shut everything down and deal with the fact that you're stuck. What did you say? Yeah, we'll talk about that, getting unstuck. There is something to it where, how many of you are aware at times you're stuck? And it's frustrating, it causes you to pace. Like when you're stuck, you're like, people get itchy skin when they're stuck. Did you know these are physical reactions? It was, there's something about the nervous system gets like wound because you're stuck and you can't figure it out. And literally what's happening is the computer of your brain is looping. It's doing the little spinny thing. And it's stuck. Right? And how many of you tried to use a computer when it's like that? You got to get something done now. And you don't know why the spinny thing is still stuck. And you're like, do I got to download something? What do I got to download? Right? But it's doing that. But you got 5 minutes to fill that form out. And you're like, come on. That's how we feel when the spinny thing in our brain is like that. So many times, in order to reboot that, we either have to start over. Sometimes you actually have to shut your computer down. Other times, you have to download something new so that it can adapt to that new thought and begin to process and follow through. Right? Our brains work like that. So in order to get it off stuck, we have to go, this plan isn't working. I can't seem to retain the plan. I forgot what the big picture was. What is the big picture again? That's what happens. It's not a person being dumb. It's a person going, the spinny thing. It just keeps spinning, right? And sometimes people think they can do the shock and awe to get you out of that. You know, like it's scared straight or something. You know, if your spinny thing's stuck and you know you need to get certain things done so you don't get in trouble, and sometimes you'll go to jail if you don't get those things done or whatever it is, it's going to be that they'll try to scare you into it. How many of you know spinny thing keeps spinning? In fact, it might even go faster. Because now they just put something into your brain you're distracted by, some big commands, some shameful things. I'm like, well, what is wrong with you that you can't get up and get moving? And then you're like, right? It makes you feel stupid and condemned. And you're like, actually, there must be really something really, really wrong with me. And you'll feel stupid. And it can get you to the point that you'll go out and do something stupid to try to break the code, try to at least get off this thought and move on to a different thought. When really you have to picture it like, my spinny thing is spinning. It's moving. And I can't get that to stop until I download something new. That's how your brain works. So coming to these classes or doing a Bible study or getting advice from someone or talking to a peer or doing any of those things is really what you're looking for is like, can I get some new downloads? I need some like new information. Because it's doing the spinny thing on the old, well, you don't have the right program. That's really what we're saying. Oh, you just need to download this program. I didn't have that program before either, but it works slick. You download this one right here, put this app on, whoo, boom. Spinny thing stops and you can get to work and do the thing that you needed to do. So that's, if it's stuck in spinning, it's a distorted way of processing. You're not going to be able to get the work done that needs to be done. Make sense? Is your spinny thing spinning right now? These are all professional terms I want you to remember. So they give them, when I go through books and stuff, they give them, and I'm like, I ain't saying that. I'm just going to call it this, right? Because we don't remember all those 6-cylinder words anyway. So it's like someone saying by virtue of its puricism, it diverses metaphysics. And you're like, okay. You know what I mean? That's how it ends up sounding. So disqualifying the positive is another distortion. Did you ever do that? A negative belief pattern that eclipses positive circumstances, reducing any that surface as insignificant all the way focusing on the negative. You ever try to help somebody just asking them questions, and then you give them a little bit of advice, and no matter what you say, they will go to the negative right now? And it exhausts you, and after a while, you're just like, I don't even know. I just got to walk away. You can't get at this person because they will not receive a positive. Well, think about it. If you're an all or nothing thinker and you overgeneralize and you're stuck on a certain way of thinking and you're spinning things like this, and I'm trying to show you can go detail to detail to get to this big picture, you're not going to buy that. It's going to end up being a feeling of like, no, I know the negative stuff that happens to me. I have proof, and I will prove it to you right now. And your subconscious will pull all the negative memories. And somebody will try to say something positive. You'll say, well, unless I get killed that night. Like, oh, you could travel there on your vacation. Well, unless I get killed on the way. It's how the brain works. It'll just be so negative because you've experienced the spinny thing not working. Didn't get certain work done, ended up feeling dumb about it, overgeneralization, and now we have an all or nothing way of thinking, and now I'm supposed to say something positive? I don't have that in my load. See, it's called a load. However your computer got loaded up, It's either a negative load or a positive one. So what's interesting, you can have a positive load on you being athletic and a very negative load about your looks. You can have a positive load about your singing and a very negative load about your ability to do math. And once it's stuck so much that God says all things are possible to those who believe, and there's so many scriptures that give you permission to move ahead on it, and it's stuck so much, your cingulate in your brain is welded on that thought. Like, nope, you can't tell me anything positive. I know this is a negative zone. You will then answer everybody like that. And you're actually a repellent to people. Because people come along, hey, you want to do something positive? Whatever. Your brain answers, and nope, I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't play games. I'm not coming out to this. I don't know. Because your brain is trying to protect itself. Because it knows if there's any demand on you, you could have a spinny thing problem. Because something needs to be downloaded and you haven't downloaded it yet. Some type of healing, some type of maturity, some type of something has not been downloaded yet. You're like, I'm not taking a chance. So my shield is the negative. I will shield against any movement so I don't have a spinny thing problem. I will just settle on the prop. Here, I'm just going to settle on it. It's always going to be this way. And that's how it is. Don't even try to get me to hope is what you're saying. The Bible says hope is a joyful, confident expectation of something good. A joyful, confident expectation of something good. Whoo, that's the fuel to your faith. Then you can move into faith because you got fuel for your faith. Woo, it's awesome. But when you settle and you're like, that will never change. You use the word never, always, and every single time. You've sealed the deal to negative, and no positive can come in and affect you. And then usually we'll go into pity parties and stuff after that. Why? Because we set it up that we have a fortress around us that nobody can get at, even God. We don't want them in there because some positive thing could cause us to hope. And we have already learned that if we hope and it falls apart, I can't handle that. That's how I deal with the pain. I just cut it off, and so there's no chance of me being hurt. I'll set up a fortress around me so there's no chance for me, and then I don't have to trust. I'll just be negative, and people will stop making me try to hope. When you're helping somebody, the only way you can help them is give them hope. You can tell somebody you should have faith. Vanessa, you need to have faith. Just have faith, and you go, oh, that's the missing thing. I had no idea. And then you walk away, and your whole life, and it doesn't work that way. Hope is the fuel to your faith. So in order to help her, I would have to give her something that would cause a joyful, confident expectation of something good. But if your brain is locked down because you're like, I ain't doing the spinny thing, I'm just not doing it. If it gets revealed to me that I don't have the right program one more time, I can't handle the pain of that. Hope comes through the Word of God. Hope comes through building relationship. Hope comes from taking the chance to trust and allowing yourself to get hurt and realizing I didn't die. See, many times hope answers are more like, well, then you learn to love and trust, and all these good people will come to you. No, you're probably going to get hurt again. But there is a hope that says, no matter what, I am never alone. I'm never alone. Christ is with me, and he is the hope of glory inside of me. I am his righteousness. I am in that spot where he goes, I go. That's what the word Christian means. So I'm not alone. I follow him and his principles. And just because the world jacks things up doesn't mean he does. Right? So what we do is we look at the God kind of hope. The world's kind of hope is like, well, I hope you make it. That's the world's kind of hope. I gave you some hope. I hope you really make it. But there's this thing of like, we don't know if you will. A joyful, confident expectation of something good comes from knowing truth. And what needs to be downloaded for our spinny thing is truth. We didn't get the memo on how to deal with certain pain or walk through certain situations in relationship. And so the memo is going to come and give revelation, but the only memo that's going to make a difference is the one that carries truth. He is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father except by him. What do we fall short of? We fall short of the glory of God, talking about the Father. And part of the word glory means the way he does things. I don't operate the way he does. I'm trying to align myself with that. But in all pureness, I'm so far off, and so are you. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So we come to him, we yield our hearts to him, and we ask for forgiveness. He repositions us. But then we still have the chance of being hurt. I trusted God. I thought my life was going to be different. You know those cry times, or maybe you're a guy and you punch a hole in the wall. You're saying the same thing, right? Whether you say it verbally or you punch a hole in the wall, you've said the same thing. I trusted God and he let me down because now I got hurt again. Yet Jesus told us in this world there will be trouble. He did not give the message like, come to me and I will protect you from all negativity. Nothing will ever touch you. I will Jedi the world. No. He said there's going to be trouble, but take heart. Take heart, I have overcome the world, which means so can you. Which means whatever pain I've suffered, if I come back around and deal with that thing, I'm not going to handle it the same way I did last time. If I learn from it, I'm not doing that. If I'm going to do that thing, I'm just not doing it like I did last time. I have the hope that I can get new information. I have the hope that my mind will be open and my heart will be changed. I have the hope that I'm not going to live in fear and have responses in fear. And I'm going to get a download from the heavenlies and from the Word of God and from good teachers and for some big dogs who have gone somewhere I haven't gone and have something I don't have. And I sit under that and I go, yeah, download that into my brain right here. My spinny thing's spinning, so we need something. Prophecy works that way. You can get stuck on something and you're like, I just don't know what to do. I don't know. This happened to my mom. This happened to my dad. I just don't know what to do. And you're in that spot and all of a sudden somebody has a word of knowledge or they prophesy something over you and it's an aha moment. Why is it an aha moment? Because your spinny thing stops spinning. And it takes down new information and it downloads it and you go, that's right. That's where I'm going next. And it's that aha moment. And that's called revelation knowledge. So we're going to do a couple more. I've got quite a few of these because we're trying to figure out cognitive distortions. Now I could come at this from an angle of like, let me come up with a label for you if you have any of these. The problem is everyone would be labeled. None of these are like, I've never had this. Everybody has these at certain times. And it distorts our computer and our brain, which is our interface between our spirit and our body. And so it causes all kinds of problems. So let's look at what we looked at so far. All or nothing thinking. You're either superhero or you're loser. And then we overgeneralize because we're so negative from things that have happened to us that we say things like, this always happens to me. And we convince ourselves that that's it. This is my life. This always, every single time will happen to me. And then we end up stuck on a mental filter that is a negative detail that we can't get our attention off. It's a detail that's like, you ever get stuck on something simple like, I don't know why you looked at me like that. What do you mean? Well, I was saying to so-and-so, I was talking to a guy named John, and he just gave me this certain look. What was that? And you can get stuck on, what was that, for days. Have you ever done that? That's a lower level of the brain distorting itself on that negative. That has to mean something. The way that he looked, people just don't do that. And now we'll actually make it into something bigger than what it is because we're so hyper-focused on it. And then we start disqualifying the positive. Well, there couldn't have been anything positive out of that. Nobody gave you a look like that. I knew it. Oh, I didn't see anything. No, I saw it. I know. I'm a people watcher. I see these things. Right? Well, you might have saw something, but really good chance you didn't. You know, sometimes I get caught. I have gotten caught in stares where God will be telling me something, and I had this happen at Walmart not that long ago. This is how my computer, my brain works. And maybe, it's a multitasker. It moves fast. You can hear that by how I talk. But at the same time, when he's downloading something to me, it's like everything stops. And I didn't realize I was in the vegetable section at Walmart staring at somebody with my mouth open. I was like, when God talks, then you do these little things with your eyes when you're getting a download. Did you ever have that? Where you're like, because your brain's thinking about it, so you might do one of these with your eyes. But you're looking at a person, but you don't see that the person's there. Because you're so far in the thought, you don't realize you're looking at, come on. Anyone else do this? You've never had that? Where you're just like, and all of a sudden you're like you're back, and you're like, oh, that lady thinks I was staring at her. And I was like, with my mouth open, and they look at you, and they're like, ugh, and walk off like, whatever, lady. And you didn't mean anything by it. You were in your own world. I saw that look. I know exactly what no, you don't. You're not a mind reader. You don't know what they were thinking. But you can get stuck on that. So then what that will cause is the next one, number 5, jumping to conclusions. When you're gridlocked and your little spinny thing is having a problem and you're stuck in the negative and not the positive, then it's like, it'll make you jump. It's the same way I was staring at that person. And then if God's, I'm straining to hear. Sometimes when you strain to hear something, your eyebrows come down. So I didn't see her. She's there, and she's like getting vegetables. And then it's like all of a sudden you're back and you realize, oh, sorry about that. I was thinking something, and they're like, sure you were, right? But she could jump to conclusions based on what she saw. That lady right there wants to beat me up. I think she hates me. The way she looked at me, she probably thinks I'm stupid because I couldn't get the bag open to put my vegetables in. It's like that. You jump to something. They don't want me anymore is a big one. I know they don't want me here anymore. Who told you that? Nobody, but I know. Okay, based on information. All the disqualifying of the positive, I already disqualified any positive things. So what I'm left with is this negative thing, and I can only come to the conclusion, they don't want me there anymore. That's why I stopped going to that Bible study. That's why I stopped coming to the church. That's why I stopped hanging out with that friend group, because I know. You don't even have to say, I know when I'm not wanted. Right? Now, maturity will have you go and have good conversation with the people. Let's say it was a group of friends. One at a time, you're like, I'm just feeling something really weird. I felt like, maybe you guys didn't want me there. What are you talking about? A lot of times that'll be the response. Are you kidding me? So-and-so's grandma just died, and we were talking about that before you came into the group, and we were distracted by that, and so maybe we didn't pay attention to you the way that we should have. But that is not what we were thinking, right? Are you serious? You still want me here? See, when you jump conclusions, you'll jump into something that's a lie from the pit of hell. And it will feel so real to you. And what confirms it is once you think it, like they don't want me, then it's like, I know. It goes right back to the beginning. All or nothing thinking, they want me out of here. I don't even know why I trust people anymore. I'm not doing the friend thing anymore. I'm done. I am so done. Have you ever had this speech to yourself or out loud or to someone else? I'm done. I am not trusting ever again. And then we're really upset. And then to back that up, we go back to number 2, overgeneralization. Every time I'm in a friend group, this is what happens. Somehow I'm on the outs. I'm the weirdo. I'm the freak. Every single time. There's your umbrella, overgeneralization. And then you just can't get off the thought of it. It was just the way she looked at me. When I came up and I said hi to everybody, they just looked at me. And I'm not going to do it. I'm out. I am out of the friend thing. I'm done. It'll be like that. And anyone tries to say, no, I don't think that's what they were thinking. Boom, you will argue that to the death. We are not allowing positive thoughts to come in right now is what your brain is saying. I've already chosen the thing I'm stuck on, and I've overgeneralized, and I already laid the whole foundational pathways to be negative, and you're here trying to talk positive, and sometimes they'll get in an argument with you when you're just trying to help. We care about you. Yeah, well, we'll see who cares about me. And that's hurtful to the person who's trying to help you. They're like, gee, Why are you, got your undies in a bundle? What is your deal? Yeah. And so this is part of it. You have to have this way of thinking to lead up to self-sabotage. So that's when we jump to conclusions. And when we jump to those conclusions, the next one is magnification. The classic story of making a mountain out of a molehill. I left that church because that lady looked at me a certain way, and it's like, I can't even see myself ever going back. It was so devastating. Was it? Because you can go and you can take something that's like, let me show you something devastating. Now let's compare it to the look she gave you. That you don't even know what she was thinking. You don't even know what was really going on. You don't know what was in her head or what was happening. You just stepped into a room and you felt like somebody gave you a crusty, and so you're done. But you're extremely devastated because you trusted God and the church and the pastor. Pastor doesn't even know what happened. But, everyone gets included. We're going to include everybody now because we're magnifying this. It's the whole group. I had somebody do this not long ago about Teen Challenge. I was in Teen Challenge and I trusted them. Yes, you know how many people facilitate at Teen Challenge? You know how many teachers are there? I trusted them. So we'll say generalization, which means all 1,200 people you were in close contact with. All of Teen Challenge in that particular building, you trusted all of them. Because guess what? When you left all of them. Right? You might have had an experience with one, but now Teen Challenge is going to get flushed right here and right now because all of them, you can't even trust it. Because look what happened with that lady. Look what happened. That guy talked to me like that. I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm not going to put up with that. I am so out of here. And then we magnify it into someone will come up, and this other lady was needing to go to Teen Challenge, and she said, I was thinking about Teen Challenge. Boom, negativity spreader. Started spreading her manure. It was just like, you know what, I had an experience and blah, blah, blah. And then, I said, whoa. First of all, you weren't there long enough to know. You know just enough to be dangerous and not enough to know. And there's too much fruit that proves the opposite of what you're saying. She started getting offended. Her ears were really red. And I said, nobody has a perfect experience anywhere. If you try to get close to anybody, and their whole job is to get close to your heart so you can heal your heart. They're not a prison to get you in there like, let's keep some prisoners and see who makes it. They're like, let's preach the word. Let's all open up our hearts. Let's go to sensitive areas or whatever, and they're being trained to help you do that. Are they perfect? No, they're not. I'm just using them as an example. Though, where we've watched over and over. I know Mary works heavily with me when it comes to Teen Challenge and goes down there and meets with people. And it's really interesting. You can have 5 people have the same experience, and one will be really offended. Like, I'm out of here. I'm not staying here. This place is nuts. And then it'll be extreme statements like that. This is crazy. No, you want me to show you crazy? Think about it. When you use terms like that, this is what crazy looks like, and this is when they corrected you. And it made you feel crazy because they called you on something you don't want to change. That's getting intense, huh? But so then what happens is if we can get away with magnifying it, like I got away so nobody can feed me any positive, then this is my conclusion, and I will leave. I can move out of state and have that conclusion. Everywhere I go now, I can diss on Teen Challenge because I walk through the steps of cognitive distortion, and I can distort this thing here and right now. People do it with church all the time. Because when you're coming to church, you're trying to learn how to give love and receive love. That's the most delicate area of your life, is to give love and to receive love. Oh, that's going to get like edgy. So what's the chances your feelings getting hurt eventually? Yeah. What's the chances of you misunderstanding something I said here tonight if you're sensitive? Pretty good. Pretty good. That's what's real. So we learn how to suffer well. We learn how to walk through it. We learn how to say, am I the one magnifying this? I got to figure this out. Did I jump to a conclusion? Are they willing to talk to me about it? Maybe we could work something through. Am I disqualifying all the positive and only hugging on to the negative? It's because my brain has been stuck in this mental filter that I can't get over that look. Why can't you get over that look? Because it might have been the same look you got in 8th grade when people were making fun of you. Right? It might be the same look your father gave you when he said something mean. I mean, our brain goes back and finds those files and ties it all together. And then we overgeneralize. Am I overgeneralizing? So you have to know these terms to catch it. Like as soon as you say, every time I turn around, there's a little person now in your head that's going to go, overgeneralization, right? Because now you know and you can't not know. It's going to go, overgeneralization. Okay, well, maybe it's not all the time. It's not every single time, but it happens. And you end up correcting yourself in order to change how your brain functions. You have to literally say, well, no, I guess I said every time, but I didn't need to go to that. It wasn't every time. But there's been a few times that this has happened and it was really hurtful. And you change your story to be more accurate. Then the computer in your brain, the spinny thing, works easier because you're not overloading it on one thing. You're downloading a new thing, and now it's going to work. Make sense? And sometimes through that process, sometimes people be like, the simpler answer is I got demons. If you just cast them out of me, I can't cast out your spinny thing. It's part of your brain. Sorry. But then there's other times, like we just saw last night at the healing service, it's like there's other times there's a keeper at the gate sitting there going, you ain't downloading nothing. We're going to keep your spinny thing spinning until you're so wore out your computer overheats and crashes, which is called a mental breakdown. If you've ever had a mental breakdown, that's what causes it. It's like, can you get back up again? Yeah, you get back up again, but you operate at a lower level so that you're not overheating it. Then what do? You better download something new so that doesn't happen. You better get the helps that you need. All right? All right. So I'm going to go for one more, if that wasn't enough. It's called emotional reasoning. Living the assumption that one's negative emotions are true reflection of how things really are. Everybody's guilty of that. Chicks were more guilty, I think, most of the time. Because the way that our brain, it fires, it's really wired hot. In fact, if you've ever seen a SPECT scan of a woman's brain when she's sleeping, it's lit. It's moving around when she's sleeping. She's in a REM sleep, and they just watch all the wiring fired up. Who knows what we're thinking about? Probably planning the next day or trying to work out a recipe. I don't know. And then, but when they see the man's cognitive thinking, when he's sleeping, it moves back and forth like a rhythm. That's just keeping him alive. Maybe a dream every once in a while. Ooh, there it is. But it goes back to a lower level of hitting that, right? So this is why women wear out easier than men. We learn, though, we use our emotional state to push through the wearing out. So sometimes it looks like we can go longer on things. We're up half the night with the kids and doing this and working 2 jobs and whatever it is. And it's like, she's got all kinds of energy. No, your brain is just overwired and overfiring. And you're able to do that. And a lot of times we don't have the boundaries to say no. We believe we can't say no to something because we have to answer all those emotional things. So emotional reasoning is living the assumption that one's negative emotions are a true reflection of how things really are. Well, I felt it, so that's how it is. I didn't feel like you loved me, so I'm a pretty good reader. By your emotions, you're a pretty good reader of people. You can really see what's going on by your emotions. I don't know that I'd follow that. I'd follow my cognitive thinking first, my factual thinking, and then see if my emotions will follow that. So if you go emotional first, it'll trump the cognitive brain. And now those emotions will make it feel like it is so real. They all hate me. I can feel it. It's so real. It'll become reality to you. And it's a distortion in the brain. So we have to retrain the brain when we go over this. But we can't retrain something we don't know that we're doing it. Right? You can't be like, I'm getting new training. For what? I don't know. Just get new training. No, we're getting new training so that we can catch ourselves at the all or nothing thinking. We go, oh, no, wait a second, wait. I got to give a different answer, or I'm not even going to open my mouth if all I can think of is all or nothing. I have to find middle ground. That's a whole project in itself, to live in middle ground. Especially when trauma happens, especially when loss happens, especially when you think someone's taking something from you, or it's actually happening. It's harder to find middle ground. It takes the Spirit of God to help you. The relationship with Jesus Christ is everything when it comes to that. Because he doesn't live in an all or nothing. So he's the biggest of the big dogs to follow. That's what makes us Christians. We follow him, and it is by his power he will bring you to a point where you're not in all or nothing thinking, you're in middle ground thinking, or you're not over generalization. Now, here's the thing. If you hit the overgeneralization, your anger is already too far up the chart that we learned about. You're already at a 9. You're already at an 8. You jumped. So you catch yourself at that point and be like, I'm going to keep my mouth shut and work through the anger I'm feeling because I'm about to generalize, and which means I'm going to make some big statements and pull some really big levers, and I better not do that in this situation. I am going to rein it back and breathe, walk it out, and try to control the anger part of it. Then you become, when you come off of the adrenaline and the epinephrine in the body and the cortisol, you come off of that, which usually takes about an hour of walking that off and doing self-talk and just breathing. Now you can look at it and be like, well, it felt like it was the end of the world. But that's not what's real. What's real is this a workable problem? I just feel uncomfortable having to work it. I just don't like to confront, or I just don't blah, blah, blah. We'll figure out what's going on inside of us that becomes the trigger for the anger that causes us to overgeneralize. And once you're mad, you can't get it out of your head. The mental filter comes on. And after that, anybody tries to help, it's like, just leave them alone. Why? Because your negative filter is there, and it will not receive a positive at that moment. Don't you even try to download to me about how my life could be good, right? So what if you come in those doors on Saturday night, worship's going on, and people are crying, and they got their hands raised before God, and you can just feel the heart of it, but you're in a disqualifying the positive mode. That is all going to aggravate you. Nobody's doing anything wrong. But it's going to be like, this is stupid. Come here, and they're all, oh, Jesus. You know what I mean? It'll start to aggravate you because they have something you're not presently operating in. But you don't want it, because if you become positive, that would mean you'd have to do self-reflection, and then you might have to walk through the pain. I'm not walking through the pain. I am going to keep in a negative mode to protect myself. And I will jump to conclusions if I have to, and I will magnify the situation if I have to, and then I'll emotionally reason about how I'm right through the whole thing. I will make up my mind how I'm right. Woo! And then we'll deal with the other 3 and a few more coming this coming week. So that's a lot to remember, so I'll probably have my secretary type those up so that next week when we have them, we can go through, and then we'll start taking them apart as to what we can do to bring about change. But I just want to ask you the question as we're going through them, are you in any of those stages right now? Just taking a little contemplation like, do I have an underlying anger right now? Am I stuck on a subject? Have I magnified something today to make it bigger than what it is? Now, the next generation coming up is somehow taught this, and I think they're taught this because we didn't learn the skills to teach them any different in our language, right? So now what'll come out is stuff like, well, what happened today? It was the worst day ever. I just want to die. Okay. And it goes to extremes where these are overgeneralizations. This is a like back in the day, Little House on the Prairie for sure. You didn't go around just saying, I just want to die. They would lock you up for that. Because that means you're recognizing you're that far over. But now we've learned that we can just throw out those overgeneralizations, and we can just jump to conclusions and magnify the whole thing. And it scares people. If I said to if I was in junior high and I said to my friend, I just want to die, I just want to kill myself, but I don't mean it. No, everybody goes, okay, I hope that's not true. Right? Somehow it's warding off, though, any help. What you're doing is you're crying for help, but you're building a barrier so no one can get to you at the same time. I need you to help me, but stay away. It's like a woman in labor. Hold my hand, but get away from me. This is going to be beautiful. You did this to me. It's like that. It's a dual thing. And then what happens is if everyone gets uncomfortable when you say, I just want to die, I could just kill myself. It's the end. I'm never going to love. I will never get married. I mean, these are big statements that young people are making now, and some older people, but we know for sure it's in this. And so what happens in that is then how do you take a big statement back? You say to your friend one day before school, I'm going to kill myself, I'm blah, 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 and I'm so done. Stupid teachers, stupid school, and we're like over the top magnifying something. Well, what happened? She gave you a D. This is not the Jewish death camps, right? Compared to something that is a big crisis. But it feels like, because we're to the point of emotional reasoning, and my emotional states that, that one grade I will never get over. That one being cut from the team, I will just die. And it creates this big thing. But what it says to everybody around is, we can't help that. You just pulled such big levers, most people aren't skilled enough to what to say. Or they try, and all the negative comes up, and they can't get in. And then you're called a troubled youth or a troubled individual. What that means is there's all this trouble inside of you, but we can't get at it. So just changing how we talk, like I'm not going to magnify this into something bigger than what it is. It might feel like that to me, but I'm not going to make it bigger than what it is. But my feelings did get hurt, and I want to be acknowledged on that. I want to be acknowledged that I felt abandoned. I don't have to go to a big extreme and magnify that, right? And many times when we're in that magnification, we've magnified things so long that when something really that's on the bigger end of stuff happens, no one cares. It's like crying wolf. Because what are you going to say that's bigger than I'm going to kill myself and I just want to die? Somebody gets raped or something like that. Well, you already said that. We already took you to the hospital for that. We already had you see a counselor for that, and you just keep saying it. Because no positive is going to go in and remove the negative, because you have a barrier there. You've chosen to magnify it. You've chosen to let your emotions dictate it. You've chosen these different things. It takes Christ in us, the hope of glory, to change any of that. If we've been in the habit of it, like one teenager, we were fasting in a youth group, and they said, how you doing? It's been 5 days without pop and whatever, stuff that's really not life-threatening. But it was like, there were kids crying. I'm like, something's wrong. Something's wrong. You can't go a whole week without a pop. I mean, we didn't pick like, this is going to be concentration camp style. We're going to fast. We said, hey, here's some items. You pick it. And they picked it, and they were just like, oh, yeah. Day 5, they were dying. There were kids crying, could you pray for me? I just feel like I'm going to die without, and you're just like, something's wrong. And it's in the mind. It's you didn't get the memos of how to process pain. And now if a Coke puts you in that much pain when you're without it, something's out of balance. This is not someone stabbing you with a knife. This is 5 days, and you can make it. Right? And it's a real problem because as soon as we stopped fasting, they just went crazy. were drinking tons of coffee and Monster drinks and everything they could get because it was like, okay, don't ever take that away from me again. Well, fasting isn't someone taking it away. It's you laying it down. We just made some suggestions and you picked it. See, out of balance comes like that. So here we are tonight, needing balance in our life because we all can admit we've done some of those things or we're presently doing those things right now. So in your situation, did you magnify it? At any time this last week, before you got here tonight, did you magnify the situation bigger? Now, you got to learn how to call a spade a spade. Like, for instance, you should be able to look at a kid's leg when they skin their knee and be able to have a reasonable way of determining if they need to go to the hospital. But that's not how it works. Sometimes people will call an ambulance because someone sneezed. It's not a reasonable thing. And it happened a lot during COVID. It was like, we're all dying. She sneezed. We got to get to the hospital. It's like, okay, stop. You didn't have a reasonable, you magnified this thing out of fear. Call a spade a spade. It's like, well, yeah, you skinned your knee. We'll pick the rocks out of it, put a little cleanse on there, and put a Band-Aid on. We'll check it. That's more reasonable. We'll keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't swell up, because then you might have chipped a bone or something like that. Can you walk on it? Yeah, you can walk on it. Okay, let's walk it off. But if you allow the child to magnify it, they're just near cripple. Right? It's just like there's, you got to serve them and bring them food and snacks and turn their favorite show on because they're dying now. And I'm not talking about not acknowledging that they were in pain, but you teach them how to work through that pain. In my son's class on Sistema Martial Arts, he did a kids class, and he taught them how to breathe through different things. You know, it's a proven fact that a woman will be more pain when she's giving birth if she doesn't know how to breathe, because your muscles tighten up because you think you're dying. This is why in between contractions actually helps the baby to come quicker and easier. The more uptight the woman is, the longer the labor. So if you understand it from that, it's the same thing of like what's the average amount of time someone should cry when they skin their knee when they're 8 years old? One kid might be a little more emotional than the other, but you're not going to shut them down. You're feeling it out, but you're teaching them like, okay, just breathe through it. And so this is what he would teach. He would teach the breathing through the pain. Deep tissue massage. Everybody have that at all? And they hit that spot. If you go, it's going to hurt more, and you're not going to loosen up that muscle. But if you lay there and focus on getting oxygen to that spot, that's what it sounds like when you're in a lot of pain. It doesn't come out smooth. It's more like, because your body's like, nah, you know. You will find that it's less painful for you. So if that's how we do it in the physical, there's emotional pain we can work through. Slow it down, give a good analysis, make sure you're not magnifying it. The same way people do if they've been free of a drug for 6 months and they use. You used one time, and now you're an absolute failure. And it gets magnified into this big thing. And you know, you got 6 months under your belt somehow. What months mean you have information to just get back up and do that again? No, I can't. Now I got to punish myself for being such a loser, and this is horrible, and you go into the negative, and it's magnified. And then people just start using and using and using rather than like, wow, that was a screw up. Who can I talk to? Who can I pray with? Let's get back up and do this thing. See? Let's stand. God is so good. When we magnify our pain and we magnify our traumas, we stop magnifying God. Worship shuts down. We got nothing to say. We're not thankful toward him because, I mean, he ain't that big. My problem's big, but God, he's on the side. When you learn how to worship through your pain, oh, thank you, Jesus, that I am alive. this hurts like crazy. Let's say it's a physical pain. Whew. Thank you, Lord Jesus, that even now you are healing my leg. See, that's a way of magnifying what he's done for us on the cross. And you will find you will walk through that physical pain far better than if you go with it and magnify it. How horrible, and God, I don't even know how it's going to heal. I'll probably have to miss work, and it's, Don't let it go there. It's you who grabs it and says, oh, we're not going any further. I'm not going to deny something happened to me, but I'm not going to magnify it. Amen. Hallelujah. Father, we come before you and we thank you that you are teaching us balance. That when we suffer, we will suffer in a productive way. We'll suffer unto repentance and change. We'll suffer in a way that causes us to go, okay, I could walk through that again, but I'd walk through it differently. I know I'd be all right. I'm not going to fear it. God, do this in our hearts and minds. As we come back next week and talk about this, Lord, that you would cause it to weld into us, that we would have a knowledge, even all through this week, we would see ourselves. We'd be like, there it is. That's that magnification thing. That's the thing where I'm stuck on something. That's that whatever. And we learn to be able to go to you or to phone a friend who can help walk through the pain. Thank you for that, Lord God. In Jesus' name, amen. So if you go to help somebody and they're not allowing you to walk through the pain and you walk away feeling like a failure, it's not your fault. If they end up going and doing something horrible to themselves, not your fault. You offered the positive, they offered the negative. And until they open up to change, there's nothing you can do. Prayer and change comes that way. Have a blessed week. I want to remind you that the week of Thanksgiving, there's no hope dealers that week. It's the week of Thanksgiving, okay? But you have a blessed week.